We'll go ahead and begin our meeting. This is the 10th business meeting of the year for the City Board of Hot Springs, this 20th of June, 2017. At this time, I'd ask everybody to rise for the invocation by Pastor Doug Jones, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Director Elaine Jones.
Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we humble ourselves before you. We recognize our weakness and frailty as human beings. It's by your grace that we draw each breath. It's by your grace that we have a voice by which to speak, ears by which to hear, and a mind by which to reason. So, Lord, we choose not to take these for granted today, but to consider them all as gifts to be used for your honor and glory. Lord, I recognize that in this chamber are men and women who have been chosen by to represent the citizens of Hot Springs, who I pray will make each vote and each decision based upon the truth of your word. Let it be the wisdom that you give them, not the wisdom that's measured by dollars and cents or by favors and position. You've warned us against those things in your word when you said there's a way that seems right unto men, but in the end it brings us death. I pray for the wisdom that comes by knowing the absolute truth of your word. Let it be the lamp unto our path and a light unto our feet. May your truth illuminate deception, expose unlawful practices, and unmask decisions made solely for personal gain. Let your truth be the standard by which we govern our lives and our city. For we know ultimately it is the standard by which you'll judge us. Your word says that we'll give an account for everything that we say, do, and think. With that in mind, I pray that you will forgive us for the sins of yesterday, help us to repent of wrongdoing today, and that you will help us to chart a new course that's holy and just for tomorrow. Lord, I pray that those you have charged with the leadership of our city, that you will raise up a David who will ask their colleagues, is there not a cause? That you will re-energize a Caleb who has a vision to glorify you. That you'll give courage to an Esther who will plead for her people even though it may cost her position and prestige. And that you will empower a Paul who will not back down from speaking the truth even before the kings. Lord, you have made us all for such a time as this. Every one of us have a divine purpose. And we will be held accountable once again for the things that we do. So as Joshua challenged Israel at the end of his life by saying, choose you this day who you will follow, I encourage the men and the women in this chamber to respond the way that Joshua did when he said, as for me and my house, I will follow the Lord. But may we take it a step further by declaring, as for me and the seat I occupy in this government, that I will follow the Lord. Help us to realize that we don't have a leadership problem, we have a fellowship problem. And if this body will follow your lead, Hot Springs will be blessed beyond measure because history has proven it over and over and over again. In conclusion, Lord, I ask for your favor and your hand to be upon your servants. May you provide for and keep their families from harm, protect their integrity, increase their righteous influence, and strengthen their resolve to do that which is right. Then for those who would oppose your leadership and your word, I pray that your Holy Spirit will open the eyes of those who hold back before it's everlasting too late. Lord, you said in Jeremiah that we are to call upon you and you will show us great and mighty things that we know us not. So today, as I call upon you, I do with expectation. For you are the Lord of lords and the King of kings. And you hold all things in your hand. Lord Jesus, let the breath that I have borrowed from you that enabled me to pray this prayer be the challenge for all of us to do that which is right in your sight, even if it defies the logic of men, because your ways truly are much better than ours. For it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Director Jones?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Jones and Director Jones. Before we take the roll, I want to welcome Director Garcia on her return to directorship of District 5. So look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to thank you and the entire board for giving me this opportunity. And I thank the citizens of Hot Springs for their support, and especially the ones of District 5.
And just a reminder for those who are going to be speaking at the mic tonight, and for those of us here at the front, that I've had a number of viewers from the last meeting contact me and indicate that, you know, they can't always hear us. So I know that we talk left and right and front, and at times the mic gets in a position where it's not picking us up. So as we look to the right and left and forward, and let's recognize that microphone needs to still be within about 4 to 5 inches of our mouth. So thank you very much. We'll call this meeting to order, and Mr. Spicer, will you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Davidson.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Clark.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Garcia.
Here.
Foley.
Here.
McCabe.
Here. This time we'll consider approval of the agenda. We need a motion to...
So moved.
Mayor, if I may, before you have a motion to adopt the agenda, agenda item number 11 pertains to the proposed purchase of real estate at 103 Marquette Place for the purpose of constructing a water tower for the municipal water system. This property underwent a conditional use application that the Planning Commission approved on June the 8th, earlier this month. There has been an appeal that was filed today of that decision. That appeal must come to this board for your consideration. And so with respect to the agenda item tonight, it's really premature to discuss the purchase of it until you hear the hearing on this appeal that's been filed for the conditional use application. And so in light of that, I would ask the chair to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to remove item number 11, and I'll have some further comments with respect to that item going forward.
Okay, thank you. So we have would entertain a motion to amend the agenda with the removal of item 11.
So moved.
We got a motion by Director Foley, seconded by Director Clark, to amend. All in favor of this amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The amendment has been approved. Motion to amend has been approved. Now we need to have a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I move for approval of the agenda as amended.
We got a motion by Director Williams, seconded by Director Jones. All in favor of the agenda as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Agenda as amended has been approved. At this time, we have the approval of the, I'm sorry.
Would you mind if I commented
Yeah, go right ahead.
on the appeal? This board, by state law, is the supreme executive and legislative body for the city of Hot Springs under a city manager form of government. However, the Supreme Court of Arkansas has determined that conditional uses, when they are appealed, are quasi-judicial. And quasi-judicial is different than legislative functions. In your legislative functions, you can be lobbied. You can be called. You can be emailed. You can visit. You can do whatever you want. It's legislation. When it comes to quasi-judicial matters, ex parte communication is prohibited. So I would ask that none of the board members discuss this matter with one another. None of the board members discuss this matter with citizens, applicants, engineers, realtors, what have you. If you need information about this issue, you can get that through the city manager's office or through me.
Mr. Mayor.
For those residents who are here tonight on this issue, do we set the date for the hearing at
Date
this
for
time?
the hearing needs to be the next regular meeting of the Hot Springs Board of Directors, which I understand is going to be a topic of discussion in a moment. The 4th of July would be the regular meeting The city is closed on the 4th of July, so the board is needing to make a decision as to whether or not you're going to meet that week.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Director Garcia.
Could Mr. Frazier or Mr. Albright explain, there's several citizens here about that issue from that neighborhood. Could you explain between now and then what will happen?
Well, one of the things that's going to happen is I'm talking to my staff about trying to have a neighborhood meeting with residents in the area to further vet the issue and talk more about some of the technical questions that have been raised, and make sure that people have all the information possible about the water tower.
And so again, I just reiterate that that's fine for staff to have a meeting with the neighborhood, with any citizen that might have questions about that. I'm just advising you that it violates the law for you to have communication with anyone about this issue, because you are going to be sitting as a tribunal, not as a legislative body.
Thank you.
So you can expect not to receive an email from me about the consequences of the meeting at this neighborhood. So.
Okay. So recognizing that we have a number of individuals here from that neighborhood, and typically we might not address the issue of the scheduling that until later in the meeting, I'd like them to be able to have that information prior to their departure today, not necessarily hold them to the bitter end. So let's talk about that now. My attitude is that we'd like to have as much participation in our city board meetings as possible. I know there was some discussion of having a meeting on July 3rd. That is a Monday, which is one day in advance of our normal meeting. But as Brian indicated, we're closed on Tuesday the 4th, and people are going to tend to have a long holiday weekend, 4-day holiday weekend perhaps, and certainly having a meeting at 7 o'clock on the 3rd with everything that's going on in town with the celebration of the 4th of July doesn't lend itself to having a lot of citizen participation, or causes them to have to forego family activities in favor of being here. So, I would suggest that we forego the first meeting in July and focus the hearing and any subsequent decision of the board at a later time in that meeting for the 18th of July, which would be the third Tuesday in July, and that would put us back on schedule with our normal meeting times. So is that okay? Is that something that the board would like to discuss, or is that suitable?
I agree. I think we can make it doing one meeting a month.
Well, certainly for the month of July, we could do that. Is everybody comfortable with it? Director Davidson?
You're out of town.
I'm out of town.
Karen?
Well, I'm comfortable with that. I was up until the time she just said that, and I was hoping to take a trip after we met for the 4th. So it really doesn't matter to me. Although I will say this board has worked very hard these last few weeks. We had a special meeting last week after the agenda meeting. I think just about all of us, with the exception of yourself, Mr. Mayor, attended the annual Municipal League Conference. So we have been busy in June, and I think we're due a little break myself. If we were not to do the 18th, then I would suggest the 5th, which is the Wednesday after the 4th. But Director Jones, I'm with you. I think in July, the middle of the summer, we can get by with one meeting in the month.
Okay.
Do we need to have a motion and a second on that? or-
Yeah, you're
So
already
moved.
scheduled for the 18th, but
Okay.
if we would have a motion from Director Jones
I move that we
to cancel
go
the
on
meeting
18th.
that would be scheduled for the 3rd of July.
So we have we have a motion by Director Jones to cancel the meeting scheduled for July 3rd. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Director Williams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So for those of residents who were interested in the water tower property purchase, we will be scheduling a hearing on Tuesday, July 18th. And most likely on that same day, later on, at the conclusion of that hearing, later on in the meeting of that evening, there could be action taken on that purchase, on that item, okay? So July 18th would be the next time that matter would come before this body in a form of a public hearing with the potential of a decision being made later that meeting, okay? So feel free to contact David or Brian for any further updates on that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
can I ask counsel, exactly what does that hearing entail? What are we hearing? The appeal on the commission's actions, correct?
Yes, the Planning Commission granted a conditional use permit, which is required for this type of use in that zone. And you would be hearing de novo the decision that was made by the Planning Commission to approve that conditional
And
use.
is the commission itself going to be able to make a presentation as to the deliberations they had or the facts that they
No,
had?
that will be presented by Kathy Selman.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Director Filing, Mr. Albright. Moving on with the consideration of the approval of the minutes. We had a regular scheduled held meeting on June 6th. The minutes are in your packet. Do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes as presented?
Mark will take the credit now.
Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Got a motion by Director Foley to approve the minutes as presented,
Second.
seconded by Director Williams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved.
Hell, man.
Recognition of guests. Do we have any guests tonight? If not, we'll just talk about our meeting rules. I know we do have some people who are signed up to speak later tonight. Many of you know the rules that we go by. We will allow individuals 3 minutes to address any item on the agenda that you've signed up for. We do have the countdown clock to aid you in monitoring your time, and we ask that you adhere to that. And certainly, directors may have an opportunity to ask questions of the presenter if it's specific to their particular talk, but we certainly would like to have directors hold any questions that are of a general nature, to after all the presentations are made, and then they can direct those to staff or to others here in the assembly. So with that in mind, we'll go ahead with the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, like any city, when you move there, you find little gems and things that are interesting to you. And one of the gems that I discovered last year shortly after I arrived here was this event called Mission Hot Springs. It's an annual event, 1 week event where churches from in the city and the region, and even 4 of them from outside the state, that unite to help our community. I think it's really remarkable. Haven't ever seen that in any other of the cities that I've managed, so it was a bright spot for me. There are 3 city parks projects that were chosen this year for the group to work on. One is the Jonestown Community Park, and there volunteers are going to remove the chain link fence on the west side of the park and fill in the post holes. And at Linden Park, volunteers are finishing installation of a round wooden post fence on the west side of that park. And then Valley Street Skate Park, volunteers are repainting the floor, the decks, and the ramps at the skate park. And another remarkable thing they do is June 23rd at the Farmers Market Pavilion from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., they will be providing a free lunch for every city and county employee that wants to attend that Friday. They did the same thing last year. It was really, I just never have seen that. And that was something special. Every city in America needs a Mission Hot Springs group, because it's a real reward for us, not the free lunch, but just to be thanked. It's a good lunch, but just to be thanked the way they did and to rally around. Gosh, what a different place America would be if all of us had just more of this kind of stuff in our heart. So I just want to thank them immensely for their contribution to us and for recognizing the service of city and county employees. Also, Last week, the well-attended groundbreaking ceremony on one of the hottest days of the year was held Friday at David F. Watkins Memorial Tunnel Park. The Park Avenue Community Association presented the city with a $20,000 check to go toward building that park. Retaining wall and amphitheater work will begin later this week. And then on July 4th, all city offices except public safety and the airport will be closed in observance of Independence Day. Tuesday through Friday, residential sanitation collection. I'm going to read this slow because I don't want anyone to miss it. Tuesday through Friday, residential sanitation collection and Earth Angel routes will run one day later than the normal schedule. Commercial collection, roll-off, and downtown routes will take place as scheduled on Monday. All other solid waste services will be suspended, as will Hot Springs intercity transit bus and paratransit routes. The city's compost facility will also be closed. Then a word from the fire marshal about the 4th of July celebration. The Hot Springs Fire Marshal reminds everyone that the sale and use of fireworks within the corporate limits of Hot Springs is prohibited, except as may be permitted pursuant to the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code. Please leave fireworks to the experts and enjoy one of the public displays scheduled for July 1 over Lake Hamilton, July 2nd at Magic Springs, and July 3rd at Oaklawn Park. And a word also from our police department. The Hot Springs Police Department just received notification of being the recipient of the 2017 Arkansas Highway Safety Grant in the sum of $38,700. These funds will be used to purchase up to 40 electronic ticket writers. I know nobody wants those, but we do need to slow our visitors down and sometimes our residents. 40 electronic ticket writers and software for reporting of vehicle accidents installed in 40 units. This will result in a dramatic increase in efficiency and reduction of personnel costs and responsibilities. This is one of the things we worked out last year with the judges here at our court system, our local court system, and they've been hoping that we could convert more and more of these cars to the e-tickets, and it does save everybody a lot of time and inconvenience. So we're happy to have that coming on. And then the police department's been really busy doing their work and not very busy talking about doing their work. So I asked Chief Stacy if he could come tonight and give you an update, just a short couple of minutes on a new program that he's rolled out in his department. They've had the first event already. It's a targeted enforcement activity, and I want to turn it over to Chief Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Good evening, directors. I'm proud to say, as part of our overall crime reduction strategy that we're implementing here in Hot Springs, that we are doing directed patrols throughout the summer. Essentially, what that means is that I've asked about 8 to 10 of our most proactive officers to go into areas that we have identified as being high volume calls for service area. And they essentially go in there and during the peak times that we've identified and really just have zero tolerance. We conducted our very first saturation in the area of Murray Street, Garland, the Hobson corridor, and it was extremely, extremely successful. But, before I give you these statistics, I also want to remind you, even though that we are performing zero tolerance activities for crime, we're also getting these officers out here to talk to the neighborhood residents. We want to know and communicate with them, where are the problem areas? What are your concerns that you're having? So it's actually a twofold approach. So just to read off, the first saturation or directed patrol occurred on June 9th on a Friday evening from 8 p.m. to midnight. We had 8 officers, including a supervisor, participate. They had 52 traffic stops. Now, this is just for 4 hours, 52 traffic stops. They only issued 18 traffic citations, but they served 5 warrants. They had 4 misdemeanor arrests. They had 3 felony arrests, 1 DWI. They made a couple of arrests and related to misdemeanor marijuana and also a felony arrest for possession of firearms by certain persons. But I'm very proud of these officers and what we're doing in the community. We have met with several concerned residents in this neighborhood, and let me tell you, we have heard a lot of positive feedback, and they were very appreciative of our efforts. So we will continue to have operations such as this occur throughout the entire city for the remainder of the summer.
And Chief, you're doing this too based on some CompStat data that helps you target where crime is most likely to happen at certain times of the day, and that's why you're targeting the enforcement in those areas. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We're directing our resources based on, computer data feedback analysis from what we've known in the past. So that'll also help direct our resources in the future and kind of let us know, when is there really a probability of high incidence of crime within an area.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Chief, I want to commend you and your staff and Kathy Selman, Mike Scott, and Patsy in code enforcement and planning, because I was involved in one of the neighborhoods you mentioned on Murray Street, and they had a problem property, and they are big supporters of the police department and Kathy and Mike and everyone in code enforcement, because some of their issues have been resolved and improved, and so when you have a problem, share that with the right people here at the city, and we'll get on it. We met with them on the Friday afternoon of before Memorial Weekend, and had an action plan, and then Chief Stacy and his staff got involved the following week, and the gentleman called me and indicated, he said, "Man, it's just been awesome." He says, "Thank you so much," and very, very upbeat and very appreciative. So I know that's just one example of one situation in one part of town, but we can do that all throughout the community. So thank you again.
Yes. And next up, we have a newer department head who some of you I know haven't probably met, and his name is Randy Otler, and Bill's going to introduce Randy, and they're going to tell you just a little bit about some of the sweeping changes that Randy has implemented since he's arrived here in Hot Springs.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier, members of the board. Randy Outler comes to us and has been with us for about 6 months now, just right at 6 months. He brings with him 37 years in the baking industry. He has brought a level of professionalism throughout the organization and our customer service, what we know as municipal customer operations. He has implemented several programs throughout that department. I don't want to steal that thunder. I know he's very proud of what he's already accomplished in that short time that he's been here. So let me introduce Randy Outler and let him discuss some of the things that he's implemented in that department. Randy.
Thank you, Mr. Burrell. Good afternoon, board. Very proud of what we're trying to accomplish at the Municipal Customer Operations Department, or MCO, as I guess it's commonly referred to as. My years of banking has lent me to realize that it's all about the customer. 100% of the time, it's about the customer. And at MCO, we have such an opportunity to impact so many people as they come through to, and in many cases, it's the first interaction that they have with the city. Mm-hmm. And so it's absolutely paramount that we set the right tone and that they walk away with what I call a wow experience. And some of the things that we've done, some of the changes we've made has been 100% for the customer in mind. There's been some operational changes, and I'll kind of go into some of this. But one of the first things that we've done is we've written an exceptional customer service handbook that basically sets the standards of what the expectation is how a customer is to be taken care of. The professionalism, the competency, the initial greeting when they come through the door. We want to make sure that they're welcomed, that they're greeted by name if we know their name. Oftentimes we do. Most customers come through month after month and pay their bills, so we build that relationship with them. So we're going to use their name. I think it's very important that we do that. We also have in this handbook not only the standards of the customer service that we want to give, but also examples of specific transactions that might be a little more cumbersome to perform. We've got kind of the shortcuts and the how-to and the what buttons to push. So when that customer service representative is sitting down with a customer that transaction would pertain to, they can immediately go to their handbook and follow those guides and those steps, and it makes that transaction flow so much smoother. Obviously, that saves the customer wait time and allows us to take care of more customers quicker. That handbook is given to each customer service representative, and they use it as a resource each and every day. We have very proud of a remodel that was done just before I came on board to the city, and it's been, I think, a real awesome experience for all of our customers as well as our employees. But we've got cubicles that our customers can go in, step into, close the door, and have that element of privacy when talking about their water account or whatever situation they may lend them to come to the office that day. There's some privacy now that they've got that before they didn't quite have as much of. The cashier line is immediately when you walk in the door, that's the first thing you see, and it's staffed by, once again, competent staff that can take care of those customers without a big delay. We've made some hardware changes and placement. We've placed a network printer right behind the cashiers where they are, so they can print everything they need to print just by really turning around and getting that documents to save them from having to leave that area. Once again, it's about speeding the process up, making sure our customers are taken care of, and where they don't have a wait line. For 3 months, we've been having a customer service questionnaire that we ask our customers to complete. It's purely voluntary, but we offer it to them to fill it out. Just 2 or 3 questions, but the focus is, how are you treated today? Were you satisfied? And I'm very proud to report that we have some very overwhelmingly kind comments that's been made about how the department's taking care of the customers. So very excited about that. The customer service manager and myself, very, very, very frequent, will lend ourselves to observe our customer service representatives. And what we want to make for sure is what we're preaching is happening. We want that customer service to be observed, and if there's anything about that experience that was not up to the standards, then we'll counsel that employee and to make for sure that that level does not fall below what our expectation is. Our entire customer service team, I think, is very committed to taking care of our customers. Like I said, a lot of times when a person first comes to Hot Springs, we're going to be one of the first places they come to for the city. We will average approximately 150 to 250 calls a day that comes through our line, and we'll have in a neighborhood of 200 people come in the office each day, whether that be to pay a bill, change an address, close a service, start a service, whatever. So there's quite a bit of traffic flow, and that's, like I say, an average. The first of the month, it's going to be considerably more than that. But I guess in summary, I'm real proud of what the team's trying to accomplish, and I appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's a tone that's set throughout the city, and a little bit of a throwdown to all of our departments for us to meet similar standards. And I just appreciate your efforts, Randy, and Bill, you too. I know that I think, Bill, you were involved in hiring Mr. Outler, I believe. And so it was not that long ago, but we're welcome aboard. We're glad to have you, and keep up the great work. Mayor, that concludes my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. This time we'll entertain Agenda 6, Item 6, Board of Directors announcements of upcoming events. Anybody have any upcoming events they'd like to announce? Director Garcia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since our next meeting isn't until the 18th, I would like to announce that on July 17th, I will be hosting a meeting at the Forest Lakes, the center at Forest Lakes at 3:30, Forest Lakes Boulevard, and Chief Stacy is giving an update on a more in-depth update from the police department on their goals, and there's some significant other accomplishments that they've made. And then Officer Joey Williams will be meeting with Neighborhood Watch. So if others are interested in forming a Neighborhood Watch in their neighborhood, they're welcome to attend also, and it is a public meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move forward with the consent agenda. Within a consent agenda are items that are routine nature that are approved without discussion. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Director Williams. We need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Garcia. Please call the roll.
Jones.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Garcia.
Aye.
Foley.
Aye.
Davidson.
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
Is approved.
This time, we'll consider resolution number R-17-100, but in order to do so, we'll need to entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved.
Got a motion by Director Foley.
This is just a resolution. You
Oh,
won't
I'm
need
sorry,
that.
this is, I'm sorry, excuse me.
That's okay.
I'll just read it by title for you,
By
Mayor.
title. Thank
This
you.
is Resolution R-17-100, a resolution approving a community development block grant, fiscal year 2017 annual action plan, and authorizing submission of a grant application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for projects listed in the action plan. That concludes a reading by title. If you would now entertain a motion and a second to adopt and have
Thank you.
discussion if you
Entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Director Clark, seconded by Director Jones. We have Planning Director Kathy Selman make a presentation. Kathy?
Good evening. This is a surprising fact to be able to tell you after going through the very long explanation about how we were estimating what the amount would be from HUD. I think it took about 10 minutes. Immediately after that, we got email from HUD saying exactly what that number would be. So we're excited about that. The number's a little higher than we estimated, so there's good news there. By way of background, the City of Hot Springs receives federal funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, as a grantee of the Community Development Block Grant Program. The CDBG program provides annual grants on a formula basis to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing and a suitable environment and by expanding economic activities and opportunities, principally to benefit low and moderate income persons. As a grantee, HUD requires that the city prepare and submit a one-year implementation strategy, which is known as the Annual Action Plan. And that plan describes specifically how the city intends to use federal grant funds to meet the goals and objectives identified in the consolidated plan. The consolidated plan is a multi-year plan that you, I believe, it's been about 2 years since you did that. So, as you may also remember, the Board of Directors adopted a prioritized list of 2017 projects as the basis for this plan on February 7th of this year. And that resolution specified that projects would be funded in priority order up to the amount of CDBG funding allocated by HUD. So nothing in this annual action plan is new. You have seen these recommendations and accepted the prioritization of those applications. Tonight, what we're doing is looking at the federal requirement. So the good news is that the city's allocation is $389,355. This is a significantly higher number than what we expected. And as a result, that prioritized list that you put together will be able to go 2 projects further down the list. So that's good news for the applicants and good news for the City of Hot Springs. There are 4 exceptions to the amounts to be dedicated to individual projects. The homebuyer education class request will be reduced from $15,000 to $11,380. This will represent actual costs after the solicitation of a statement of qualifications in April of this year. The Pleasant Street Pocket Park elevation plan and plot design project will be able to be accomplished using prior year funds from the under budget acquisition of the property that will be the site of that park. The Ouachita Children's Center has completed several of the proposed improvements to their fire escape and has reduced their request from $16,000 to $7,500. And there is a complicated fourth item here. There's been a request for a potential grant match contingency of prioritized funds. Should a 2018 Federal Lands Access Program, FLAP, grant be awarded to the city for pedestrian and drainage improvements on and around Whittington Avenue, that's one, and should the Whittington Valley Neighborhood Association's $40,000 Myrtle Street Sidewalk and Drainage Improvement Project, and that's number 10 on the list, should that be authorized tonight, then the Whittington Valley Neighborhood Association requests that approved CDBG funds be committed as a 20% match toward the FLAP award of up to $160,000. That gets much bigger bang for the buck, and that is before you tonight as something that we're asking. Both granting agencies agree that CDBG funds can be used for this purpose. If the 2018 FLAP grant is not awarded, any authorized CDBG funds for the Myrtle Street project would be used for the described sidewalk, ADA accessibility, and drainage improvement activities in the original application. The availability of the annual action plan for public review and comment has been advertised since May 28th. No written comments have been received. One verbal comment in support of the plan has been heard. The Community Development Advisory Committee, CDAC, held a duly advertised public meeting on June 1st, at which time they reviewed the plan and accepted public comment. In a 4-0 vote, the committee unanimously recommended the plan to the Board of Directors for consideration. Prioritized projects that exceed the amount of the $389,355 allocation will be placed on hold and reconsidered should funds become available during the 2017 calendar year. And that completes the presentation.
Thank you, Director Salmon. We have one member of the public that has signed up to speak.
Before Kathy sits down, I'm looking at this list of projects. This takes us down to 20. Oh, so we can do everything on the list.
Yes, sir.
That we're looking at. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
I was thinking it was a little less. All right, thank you.
Mr. Toth, please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Mark Toth, president of the Whittington Valley Neighborhood Association. I want to thank Kathy for attempting to explain what we want to do should we get the $40,000 in CDBG money. We hope, if everything works out, to make that $200,000, to do $200,000 worth of work up in Whittington if everything falls into place. But I'm just up here to say if you have any questions about that and that process, I can answer that. And if not, I'll sit down and you guys can get back to work. All right. Thank you very much.
This time, is there any discussion amongst the board members?
I just have one question. If the grant is not received for the FLAP, where would this money go? Where was it going to go?
Sidewalk. Going to go to where it was originally intended.
Right. It's going to Myrtle Street.
It'll still be there for Myrtle Street in the Whittington Avenue.
Yes. If Myrtle Street is funded by your acceptance of the annual action plan, then $40,000 goes in that direction. If the FLAP grant is received, then you would be allowing the staff to move that on a contingent basis.
Okay.
Ask the question. The intent is that Myrtle will get done, but if we get the extra money, we can do additional work.
Okay.
That's the goal. So no matter what, our intention is to get that connection between the two parks in Whittington. Thank you.
But that does raise a question for me, and that is the extent of the other $160,000. Is that going to be taken before the advisory committee also for approval, before the application is made?
No. The advisory committee is aware of this contingency, and they are recommending to you that you accept the funding of the project, knowing that without the FLAP grant, the improvements to Myrtle will be done. With the FLAP grant, additional work will be able to be done in addition to Myrtle.
But they don't know what that additional work is going to be or proposed to be.
I don't know the details of that request.
We've already applied for one large FLAP grant of like $850,000. I think that's the amount, right, Lance?
That's correct.
And we had originally planned for much larger, 120, working with the city engineer, sidewalk improvements, rain gardens, up and down Whittington, paths, maybe some work downtown on the sidewalks. But due to budget restraints in earlier years, that had to be cut back, and we lost about 400,000 of those projects. So the intent would be to go back and put in those 400,000. What we cut back was we were going to do fewer sidewalk repairs. So we're going to go back and put in all the sidewalk repairs we can, put back some in the rain gardens. These were all elements that had been in the original FLAP grant that was developed with Gary Carnahan. We're just going to be putting back elements that had been cut. And Lance is familiar with this.
Director Fowler, I can answer your question pretty succinctly. If we were to apply for that Phase 3, the board would authorize that application. So you would see the projects and the funding amount.
So we know what we're spending the money
Absolutely.
on. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
That's what I was looking for. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, yes, he's right. It's going to come back to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Clark,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Foley,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
It's adopted.
At this time, our next business is to consider ordinance 01723. I'll need entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved.
A motion by Director Clark, seconded by Director Jones. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Mr. Albright, please read by title only.
Yes, sir. Ordinance number 01723, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6170, Hot Springs Extension and Connection of Municipal Water and Wastewater Services Ordinance. That concludes your reading. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
A motion to adopt.
So moved.
Director Foley made the motion, seconded by Director Garcia. This time, we'll hear a report from City Engineer Gary Carnahan.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see all the chairs filled tonight. Director Jones, good to have you back. And Ms. Garcia, welcome back.
Thank you.
This is regarding our ordinance that helps us make decisions about water and wastewater connections. And in Section F of that ordinance, there are exceptions that allow extensions of the water and wastewater pipe system, the mains, for 300 feet to take care of failed septic tanks that need to be connected to the wastewater system, or if a service has been run diagonally across someone else's property, it needs to be put back in the street. But we found that most of the time is not quite far enough to make that correction or extension, and we'd like you to approve this ordinance so that it could be 500 feet of extension rather than 300 feet. Thank you.
Any questions of Gary? We have no member of the citizenry signed up to speak, so if we have any questions of Gary, we can address those at this time. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Williams,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
Folly,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye. Next, we'll consider ordinance number 01724. Would need to entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
I so move, Mayor.
Got a motion by Director Jones, seconded by Director Williams. Mr. Albright, please read by title only.
You voice vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Approved.
Ordinance 01724, an ordinance accepting the annexation of certain territory located on 8.87 acres generally at 2804 Albert Pike Road to the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, making same a part of the City of Hot Springs, assigning said lands to a zoning district, assigning said lands to a board district, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Thank you. Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I'm sorry, I missed who made the motion.
Randy.
We both did simultaneously, so I'll second his motion.
Okay, Director Foley made the motion, and Director Davidson made the second. And we have Planning Director Kathy Selman for a presentation.
Thank you. The applicants are Joe Gosley and Mike Tankersley, and they represent all 8 of the separate parcels that are requesting annexation and initial zoning of C4 Regional Commercial Open Display District for those subject properties. And the applicant anticipates future development that would be consistent with the requested C4 zone district. The applicants meet the ACA 1440-609 annexation by 100% petition requirement as the lands are contiguous with the city limit. Garland County Judge Rick Davis executed an order on May 18th recognizing that they had met the requirement, and so we are here tonight to consider the annexation itself and initial zoning. Planning Commission duly advertised and held a hearing on May 11th, at which time they unanimously voted to recommend that the Board of Directors adopt an ordinance zoning the subject lands C4 upon annexation. Planning Commission found that the applicant's proposal demonstrates compatibility with surrounding development and zoning and is consistent with the objectives of the zoning code. As a footnote, I would like to remind everyone that a specific use is neither proposed nor approved by this initial zoning decision. Future site development is subject to local, state, and federal requirements that may be in effect at the time of development. So the recommendation is that you consider the ordinance approving the petition and zoning the lands C4 regional commercial outdoor display. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no member of the public signed up to speak for or against this item. Is there any comments or discussion amongst the directors?
Are there any, these parcels that front Bull Bio, are those long parcels extending from the commercial part, or are some residential areas on their part of it?
Well, looking at the map, which I
Okay,
believe...
now we got a different map. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty.
The kind of the diagonal hatching on page 189 may be also helpful to you. There is no one named polygon that could possibly cover the shapes of these pieces. They go from long, skinny, short, fat. Some are square, some are triangles.
So is the mobile home park part of this voluntary annexation?
Part of it is, yes.
It is, okay,
Yeah.
and then that's where it stops on Bull Bio?
Yes, that is the extreme that it covers, yep.
Okay.
That's my only question.
Any other questions?
Gotcha.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Garcia,
Aye.
Folly,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
That-
Last action item for tonight is consideration of ordinance 01725. I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Director Clark, seconded by everybody else. Director Davidson. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Brian, please read by title only.
Ordinance 01725, an ordinance accepting the annexation of certain territory located on 27.366 acres, generally at Shady Heights subdivision, to the City of Hot Springs, Arkansas, making same a part of the City of Hot Springs, assigning said lands to a zoning district, assigning said lands to board district, and for other purposes. That concludes your reading, Mayor. If you would, entertain a motion second to adopt and have discussion, if any.
Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Oh, my goodness. Director Jones,
Yes, sir.
seconded by
Second.
Director Clark.
Reading.
We have Planning Director Selman, once again.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant and owner is Robert Gunn. He is representing a business, TWS Investments LLC, and is requesting Board of Directors approval of a petition of annexation and initial zoning into the corporate limits of the City of Hot Springs. This might be complicated. This is a project that has undergone earlier development. 73 units were platted and partially built out. However, that subject property A is currently under a building permit hold pursuant to Arkansas Fire Prevention Code, which requires that a development of more than 30 homes requires the improvement of a secondary means of egress. Acquisition of the adjacent acreage fronting Shady Heights Road and known as subject property B may facilitate the design and improvement of such an access. This property is extremely steep, and that has made design and improvement of a satisfactory second way in and out. It's been thwarted for quite some time. Clubhouse Circle from Shady Heights Road into the development is very steep and may not conform to adopted city standards. The applicant has requested initial zoning of R4, medium high density residential, for both subject property A and subject property B. The applicant anticipates future development consistent with the requested R4 zone district. So the development that has occurred to this time has been in unincorporated county, and this is the best zone district that we can come up to that will allow what is there to be compliant with a zone. Planning Commission duly advertised and held a hearing on May 11th, at which time they unanimously voted to recommend that the Board of Directors adopt an ordinance zoning the subject lands R4 upon annexation. And again, specific use is not proposed, it's not approved by this initial zoning decision. Future site development will be subject to local, state, and federal requirements in effect at the time of development. That concludes the presentation.
We have no members of this, no citizen has signed up to speak. Do we have any discussion amongst the directors? Director Foley.
I do. When you drive that street that Ms. Selman was talking about, that really is very steep. I don't know how we would get. I don't know what the standards are for fire truck to get in that area. I understand we're not going to take the roads with this annexation because the roads don't meet the requirements at this time. But I think that the public in that area, that's going to be annexed, probably is going to assume we're going to fix those roads. And I want to make it clear that we don't have the obligation to. I don't know, what is the process of making sure that those roads get taken care of for another point of ingress or egress before we even accept the road? What is the process?
Mayor, that's going to be taken care of in the development review process. And the alternate route that meets our fire truck specifications will have to be part of that before we would approve that phase of the development in the subdivision.
Okay, so we have an obligation to take care of those citizens in that area on roads that don't conform to what we need to conform to. Is that
We
correct?
have an obligation to make sure there's an egress that meets, at least one egress into the subdivision that meets our fire code standards.
Okay, and if that's the case, what is, for the developer, what assurance do we have that in fact is going to be done?
They don't get their subdivision approved if it's not part of the project.
Well, what about the subdivision that's there that we're committing a safety to?
I think they've been having meetings actually with the developer, so I'll let her address
Yeah,
that.
the incentive, if you will, that we have to getting that situation remedied with the secondary means of egress is that no city building permits will be issued even to those remaining lots that are undeveloped in the original 73 lots. They're at a standstill until they're able to demonstrate compliance with the code.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Director Garcia.
Is there a drainage problem in that area? Do you know?
There has been a drainage problem in the area. The city called the security bond that was guaranteeing utility and road improvements in that first area. Much of the work that was done with that money from the security bond went to making sure that both roads and utilities were as compliant as they could be in the area where roads hadn't been put. This was a completion of the requirement of unbuilt roads. It was the security bond was targeted to a specific filing of that area, that neighborhood, and we are unable to use those funds to fix things that already had been improved. I know that sounds bizarre as I'm saying it, but if you provide security to make sure something happens in filing 3, you can't drive down the street in filing 1 and say, this is where we really need to spend this money. We couldn't. It was dedicated to filing 2 or 3.
You know, it looked. Of course, I drove everything we were considering tonight, and it looks like to me. And by the way, initially you have that nice entrance, and then just before you go down, you have this beautiful view, and all of a sudden you just plunge down that hill, and it's got some grooves cut in the concrete. I'm sure that's for safety reasons, and I had driven this area last year with Director Foley, and it looked like to me that since I'd driven there, once you get to the end of the concrete street and you turn back to your left, that there are new hot mix streets with curb and gutter. Those have been done fairly recently.
Yes, and they-
and so
Yep.
everything that I said, oh, okay, this is recent because as I recall, it seemed to be concrete, and it's just been my observation from past experience that concrete streets really are difficult to maintain. And so I'm always glad to see hot mix instead of concrete. Just an aside. Thank you.
So I want to go back to Director Garcia's question. Is there a drainage problem? On the left-hand side of the street, when you go down when you get to the bottom of the hill or near the bottom of the hill, the first row of homes that would be on the south side of the development seems to have a drainage problem right behind those homes when I drove it a couple of times. And I'd like to understand whether that is a problem we have to fix, or the developer has to fix, or if it is a problem. When I drove it, there was water standing.
Yeah. I'm not your best expert on drainage. I know that water goes to the lowest point. That's all I know about it. As to its code compliance, I would certainly think that if somehow something was accepted that way, then I think, we would be responsible for it. But we haven't accepted that.
See, the area to the south of that is undeveloped. And so there's some natural catching of the water there from the vegetation. When that gets developed, all of a sudden, those people downstream are going to have a problem. And so I'd like to really understand the extent of our liability in fixing that.
If you're speaking to undeveloped, vacant lots in that development, this is the perfect opportunity to remedy those issues.
Yes.
Mr. Gunn did not purchase just the units that are constructed. He purchased the entire parcel.
Okay.
And his incentive in annexing to the city is so that now that he can get the building permits, the water and sewer connections, and in doing so, he needed to construct a new road. Mr. Malone did a fantastic job of solving a problem that we didn't know how we were ever going to solve it.
Okay.
It was a mess. It wasn't in the city. We couldn't do anything about it. The rest of the property couldn't be developed based on the connection and extension policies that the board has adopted with respect to water and wastewater. If it comes in, then they fall under the inside city policy. They're able to develop, and Mr. Malone has found a way to make that happen.
Okay, great. Thank you. That happens to be very close to my district right now on the far east side.
Yes, sir.
So if there's a problem, I'm going to be the one getting the calls. I want to make sure we understand what our liability is.
But with respect to those lots that had not been developed, this is the opportunity. They're going to need to come in and go through development review. It'll go through all of the departments. Stormwater will be involved.
Great. Thank you.
I want to follow up on a comment that Director Foley made. After assuming that this is approved, tomorrow morning we start responding to fire service for that area, or
Once the annexation is complete, yes.
yeah, so we won't have that second means of access. So we'll have, smaller trucks, I guess, versus larger vehicles going there.
I believe Chief Davis has addressed it as far as the units that he would send, so that they're not obviously a large pumper truck.
Okay.
So they have an action plan in place.
They do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Oh.
Ms. Weatherford?
Carol Weatherford, 103 Ironwood, Hot Springs, Arkansas. I'm over construction and maintenance at Shady Heights apartment homes. I have been there almost the whole time of this project being under construction. The street that you worry about now, which is grooved and concrete is right at 7 inches thick going down that hill. We've never had a problem with a truck going in or out there, no matter what kind of load has been on it. And I've taken some concrete trucks down with 10 yards. I've sent trucks back up the hill with a lot of big loads on it, trucks with a lot of roofing, which are, I would say, would be the same weight as a fire truck coming in there. We've had a couple of fires in there, which we've never had any problem with fire trucks coming in or getting back out. We have never had a problem with ice. We have never had, I'll take that back, one time, one day, we had ice on the street that couldn't get out, and we didn't have somebody from the cities coming out there and sanding it. In one day, it was gone. We've never had a problem with that. The drainage problem that I think you saw on the left-hand side at the bottom, when was that?
It's on the back side of the homes.
Yes, when was that?
Oh, I don't recall. But
Okay,
I've
well,
done it a
in the
couple
last-
of times,
in the last
and there was
3
water
weeks,
sitting
we have
both times.
solved that problem with our own drainage. We've taken that up, dug that out, put concrete in there, and it's a drainage that comes back around to our street now.
Okay.
We had flooding on that side at one time 6 or 7 years ago. We spent a lot of money creating a berm and creating a drainage flume on that backside there, which now does not allow those houses to flood.
Okay.
And we've never flooded any houses on the other side of the street, on the down the bypass, back up to the bypass.
Okay.
And Mr. Malone has spent a lot of time getting drainage figured out and a road figured out for the second entrance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Foley,
Aye.
Davidson,
Aye.
Jones. Aye. Clark,
Aye.
Williams,
Aye.
Garcia,
Aye.
McCabe.
Aye.
It is adopted.
That concludes the action items for tonight's meeting. Our final item is Board of Directors' comments. Any comments from the individual directors? Director Williams.
Well, not a comment, just a question of council, and if you don't want to answer it, it goes back to item 11. And you can say, call me on it, and I will. Does anyone have standing to bring an appeal of a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission to this board?
Citizen of the City of Hot Springs does, yes.
All right. Anybody who's a citizen of Hot Springs?
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. And secondly, can you name who the citizen is that brought this complaint?
Sure, that's a matter of public record. Susie Batterton.
Okay.
She's a resident of
Okay.
that particular neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
And so, again, you open the door for me. You have to think of yourself as being like a judge. Okay? So, let's not go to the scene of the crime. Let's not go see the accident. Let's not. What you make your decision on is what you hear in this chambers on July 18th.
Okay.
And I'm sorry. That's Arkansas Supreme Court has made that determination.
Okay, well, that's okay. I drove out there yesterday, so that,
And that was
drive out
before-
there again.
That was before the appeal was
That had
lodged.
any knowledge that this was forthcoming.
That happened today.
Okay.
Thank you all for your kind understanding.
Any other comments? Director Foley.
I would just like to reiterate, I think, some of your comments, and that is the expression of appreciation to the police department. They have been absolutely out in the community offering the development of neighborhood services, holding special functions, getting teenagers involved, getting the community involved, focusing on crime, working with the state, the federal government, and the state government in enforcement of the drug laws especially. I've never seen so much activity out of one department, and I want to personally express my appreciation to Chief Stacey.
Thank you. Director Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank, last Wednesday I was sworn in. I want to thank you and Director Foley and Mr. Brian Albright and the others that was there, you surprised me. I didn't expect anyone but Judge Williams. So thank you, and special thank you to Sheila Winters and Bill Burris for that very day getting me signed up for the Municipal League and the city official trainings that began that afternoon. And I also wanted to shout out to Rick Stoddard and Mike Scott in the planning department. They did a great job helping out a neighbor of mine on her project. And also to remind everyone that on July 1st, that this Visit Hot Springs is sponsoring the free fireworks out on the Lake Hamilton Bridge on the east side by the Clarion.
Yeah.
So that'll be before the Saturday before the 4th. If it was to rain, they plan makeup on Sunday night.
Any other comments? If not, I'd just like to thank all the directors and all those who took to the mic that you listened well and got your voice close to the mic, and I think the audience at home appreciated that. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so moved.
We got a motion by Director Jones.
Second.
Second by Director Williams. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Who want to stay here longer? Say no. We are adjourned. Thank you.